Welcome back to another episode in the Classic Coffee Contemporary series. Today we're looking at the Mojito. Let's get straight into it. Alright, welcome back to the Coffee Cocktail channel everyone. I'm Dan Fellows, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel. This channel is all about taking coffee and cocktails and kind of leveling up the two and bringing the two together in interesting and creative ways. And if that's valuable to you and you're interested in either coffee or cocktails, which hopefully you are, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. So today we're going to be looking at one of everyone's favourite cocktails, which is a mojito. And the mojito is a really powerful drink, and any of the bartenders amongst you will be able to relate to this. When one person in a bar orders a mojito, all of a sudden the entire bar is drinking mojitos and you made hundreds. So it's a really powerful drink, it really does spread. And when it comes to the backstory of a mojito, there's no real clear story. It's got a kind of murky origin. So like many cocktails, we don't know exactly where it came from. There are lots of interesting stories, one of which includes Sir Francis Drake, another one includes Ernest Hemingway, but fundamentally we don't really know exactly where it came from. But what we do know is it's a perfect base for experimenting with, and that's what we're going to do today. In its simplest form, a mojito contains mint, rum, lime, sugar, and potentially some soda water, and that's going to be the base of all of our drinks today. So we're going to start with a classic mojito. So as always, when I demonstrate different drinks, this is a kind of template that you can play around with, and I strongly recommend experimentation, and you can play around with a lot of the ingredients in the drink, which we'll talk through as we go. But first of all, we're going to build this in the glass, and I've frozen this glass to keep it nice and cold, and we're going to start with around about 10 to 15 mint leaves. And you don't need these to be super beautiful, as long as they're minty, which they will be. That's the most important thing. You can use different types of mint. Peppermint will give a different end result to spearmint. And if a little bit of the stalk gets in there, that's not too much of a problem. Obviously, the more mint you add, the more minty the drink will be. So choose as much as you like in there. If you do come across a nice sprig that's kind of pretty, you can save that for later because that's going to be our garnish. And as long as you get around about 10 to 15 leaves in there, it's going to be a really good basis, which should just about kind of half fill your glass. To that, you want to add your sugar. And because we're making a kind of light mojito, I'm going to add 20 mils of a white cane sugar syrup. But you can play around with this. As long as you use a 2-to-1 sugar to water ratio, this should be well balanced in the final drink. There are lots of different sweeteners you could choose, but you need to make sure you tie it into the other ingredients, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And then to balance our sweetness, we're going to go 25 mils of lime juice. And just remember that your ratio of sugar to lime is going to affect the sweetness and the kind of acidity of the drink. So you could add more sugar, more acid, less acid, to kind of suit your flavour palette. So whichever you prefer, there's no right and wrong. This just works well for me. Next up, you just want to lightly press this to infuse some of those mint oils into our sugar and our lime. You don't need to be too rough here. You don't want to tear the leaves, just to press them to release that oil. For our spirit base, I'm going with an aged white rum, which has been aged and then charcoal filtered. But the rum you choose really will have a big impact on the final drink. So you want to pair your sugar specifically to this. So if you use a kind of funky aged Jamaican rum, maybe something like a muscovado sugar syrup would work really nicely. But because we're keeping things light and really refreshing, I'm going to use our white sugar syrup to pair the two together. But there's lots you can do here, and this will massively impact the final flavour of the drink. Next up, we're going to add our crushed ice to almost fill the glass. Just want to give this a little mix together, moving quite quickly so we don't over dilute the drink. And you just want to pull the leaves throughout the drink so it gets that nice kind of balanced look with a little bit of mint throughout. If you want to add soda water, I recommend adding it now, around about 25 mils, but definitely no more because we don't want to over dilute the drink, but it does make it nice and refreshing. Top it with a little bit more crushed ice. Just going to clap our mint just to wake it up a little bit, release those nice aromas, and then we'll finish the drink with our nice mint sprig and a straw. And there you have our classic mojito. Let's give this one a try. Cheers everyone. I do love a mojito. Do you? Let me know in the comments if you do. And let me know what other recipes you'd like to see in the future. But that is super balanced, really refreshing, really clean. It doesn't have that kind of funky rum character, but if you used a different rum, maybe something like Appleton 8, you'd get a bit more funk in there, but this is really clean. And it's just super delicious, perfect for a summer's day, and I could probably drink far too many of these than I should. Very tasty, but now we're going to riff on this and make our second version, which is a black mojito. So next up, we're going to make a coffee mojito, which is called a black mojito. And this is actually a riff on a drink we used to make in a bar I worked in quite a long time ago, where we used a black sugar syrup, which was a molasses syrup, but we're actually substituting in coffee SACCHARUM syrup, which if you don't know how to make, I'll link a video at the end of the video, so you know how to make this exactly. But essentially we're using that same template of mint, rum, lime, sugar, and something sparkling, but we're really gonna drastically change the flavor profile by choosing different ingredients. So once again, we're building this in the glass, starting with our same 10 to 15 mint leaves, and I do recommend making sure these are nice and clean before you use them. This time we're going to slightly increase the amount of our sweet ingredient, which is our coffee SACCHARUM syrup, because in our template we use a 2-to-1 syrup, but this isn't quite so sweet, so we're going to go 25 mils in total. And this is made with leftover espresso pucks. So the coffee I chose for this is actually quite a high intensity coffee with a bit of roast character coming through. It's a Brazilian pulp natural coffee. And this is really important because we want to really stand up against those big ingredients in the drink so it's not completely lost and we get plenty of coffee flavor coming through. So as well as our espresso pucks, I've combined this with actually 2 sugars, which are much darker than the original spec. So a light muscovado and a dark muscovado sugar. And I've combined it with the same rum that we're using in the drink. So this is essentially like a dark coffee SACCHARUM syrup, really leaning into those kind of rich molasses dark sugar flavors, as well as the kind of darker coffee flavor as well. We're going to go for our same 25 mils of lime juice, freshly squeezed, and then once again give that a little press just to wake up our mint and really infuse those flavors into the drink. For our rum in this version, we're going super dark once again with our kind of rich molasses notes, and I'm going 50 mils of Gosling's Black Seal rum. But you could potentially use Myers or any really dark, high intensity treacle-like rum, and it's going to lean into those rich, darker flavors perfectly. Again, this gets a nice quick churn with our crushed ice to kind of mix the mint through the drink nicely. And then this time, I'm going to add 25 mils of nice, good quality sparkling ginger beer. Kind of leaning into some dark and stormy vibes with the rum and the ginger beer, and just adding a bit of freshness to the drink. Crown it with a little bit more crushed ice. We're going to serve it with a straw, our nice mint sprig, and this time also a dehydrated lime wheel, which kind of leads into those dark citrus notes. And there we have the black mojito. So let's give this one a try. Should be quite different to our classic mojito. Cheers everyone. Give this a try. It's very tasty. Very different. You got more of that kind of tiki character coming through. Plenty of coffee flavor. A really nice balance of sweetness. We've got that rich citrus in there as well. The rum, the muscovado sugars give it a lot of kind of toffee character, kind of like a caramelized toffee, very dark toffee. You've also got a really nice kind of cola note almost coming through from the ginger beer. But if you wanted to get even more of that and get a little bit more sparkle, you could even add a touch more ginger beer just to freshen the whole drink up, if you like. So this is probably closer to 50 mils, but you can get away with a little bit more because it's not just soda water as we did in the previous recipe. Changes the dynamic quite a lot. I really like both. Mint, coffee, lime, dark rum, delicious. And now we're going to make our contemporary mojito. So for our contemporary mojito, we're going to make a clarified almond mojito. And there are 2 kind of key drivers behind this. It gives the most incredible texture, but also we get a really nice flavor combination of mint and almond, which really bridges the flavor with the rum really nicely. And we're going to add a little bit of subtle zero waste coffee technique to this. So this is actually quite a big batch. This makes just above 500 mils. So you can make quite a few drinks out of that. And we're going to start with around about 40 to 50 mint leaves. So I won't bore you with the time it takes to do this. We can come back once they're all picked. So if you're working with scales for this, I recommend going with around about 12 to 15 grams of your mint leaves. And then to this, we're going to add our sugar. So I'm going with an almond syrup from Monin. And this just gives a really nice complementary flavor, which ties in really nicely with the mint, giving a little bit of nuttiness and a really kind of fresh flavor and something completely different to our original mojito. We're going to go with 100 grams of our sugar syrup. But you can also use different flavored syrups for this, which complement the mint and the other flavors in the drink. So again, this is a template inspired by my clarified coffee sour, which gives you lots of different room to maneuver to add flavors that you love to the final drink. To balance the sugar, I'm going to 150 grams of freshly squeezed lime juice, which I've pre-weighed. And then we just want to give this a really good mix together to infuse our mint into our lime and our sugar. Give this a stir for around about a minute, just to really infuse that flavor. You can also lightly press the leaves if you need to too. So now that's mixed together really nicely, we're going to go in with 300 grams of our aged white rum. And again, you can use different rums for this. I just think a white rum ties in really nicely with the almond notes. Kind of smells like a minty amaretto, which is a good thing to smell of. And then 6 grams of a 1 to 5 saline solution, made with 1 part salt to 5 parts boiling water. So now we've got our base, you just want to leave this to one side for around about 6 hours at least, just to really let that mint incorporate into the other ingredients and all those flavors mingle and kind of intensify. After 6 hours, you'll be left with this, which is our really kind of minty, smells delicious to be fair, mojito base with all those intense flavors. So what we want to do now is take a second bowl, and in it, we're going to add 150 grams of almond milk. And I'm using Ultra today, which works really, really well. But you can experiment with your own almond milks and see which works for you. This does also work with other plant-based milks, but you kind of want to tie the flavors together to give yourself the best harmony in the final drink. So I'm going to go 150 grams. So now I've got our two bowls, we've got our almond milk here, but you can use whole milk, you can use different plant-based milks, and we've got our mojito mix. You just want to carefully add the mojito into the plant-based milk. And as you can see, it just immediately curdles, which is exactly what we want. Now we've got our curdled mix. We want to grab a spent filter paper from that morning, and I've made a clever dripper this morning with 20 grams of coffee to 300 grams of water. And I use this coffee, which is a Peruvian coffee from Sweven Coffee. And because it's got those really nice fruit notes of kind of watermelon and tropical fruit, but also some really nice nutty notes, it really ties all these ingredients together really nicely. So to clarify the drink, what we want to do is take our curdled mix, take our spent filter bed, and we're just going to carefully pour the curdled mix through our bed of filter coffee. So I recommend adding around about halfway up in your filter, give it a little stir just to mix the coffee into the drink. And then what you want to do is just watch this until the liquid's coming through fairly clear. So now we've poured this through for around about 5-10 minutes. Just want to add this back into our filter and then let the whole drink draw through. And you get a really nice, not completely clarified with the almond milk, but if you used whole milk, it'd be really nice and clear. And you get this really nice end result. So when you've done that, what you want to do is just keep feeding the filter, adding a little bit more of our mix over time until all of this has passed through. And after around about an hour, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on your grind size, you can move this to one side. And what you'll be left with is something that looks like this. So as you can see, this is pretty well clarified, not as perfectly as it would with dairy, but still a really good end result. And with this, we're ready to make our final part of the drink, which is the Clarified Almond Mojito. So to build the Clarified Almond Mojito, you want to take your frozen glass, which has got a nice clear ice cube in there. Ideally, you'd let this temper for around about 15-20 minutes, just so it doesn't crack when you add the liquid to it. But we haven't had a chance to do that today, so it might crack slightly, but it's still going to be super delicious. So go almost all the way to the top with your Clarified Almond Mojito. And I can already smell the mint coming off this. Told you it'd crack. Do as I say, not as I do. And then all you're going to do, because we've got those really nice kind of nutty, biscuity notes from our coffee, from all of our kind of other ingredients, the almond, the mint, we're going to finish this, instead of soda, instead of ginger beer, with a little bit of sparkling wine, which already has those really nice biscuity notes as well. Don't go too expensive on this because obviously it's going up against some big flavors, but just go for something nice and dry, which is going to complement the rest of the ingredients. Top up the drink with around about 25 to 50 mils of sparkling wine. And then one last time, we're just going to garnish with our straw and our mint sprig. And there we have the Clarified Almond Mojito, with a little hint of coffee in there as well. So let's give this one a taste. I'm actually going to go to the drink rather than the drink coming to me because it's quite full. Cheers. It's got everything I love about a mojito. Loads of mint flavor coming through. I think the time infusing really does make a big difference. But the texture is just completely different. It's really creamy without being obviously creamy, if that makes sense, really silky. The almond really comes through as well. It's almost got a Mai Tai feel to it. It's got a lot of common flavors with the Mai Tai, rum, lime, mint, orgeat, but it's definitely distinctively a mojito. The sparkling wine just tops it off. It's got that biscuity note. It's just so silky. And then the sparkle just kind of offsets that. And I am very happy with that. Plus, I've got all this left over, so got a big old batch. You can multiply it up and down according to how much you need to make, and that will basically keep for a very long time in the fridge. So there we have our contemporary Clarified Almond Mojito with a little bit of coffee coming through. We've covered the classic mojito, which is light and refreshing. We've got the black mojito with a hint of coffee coming through and the really rich notes. And now I've got this, which is our clarified, slightly differently flavored mojito. All very different, all very delicious. So if you found value in this, which I really hope you have, make sure you subscribe to the channel, which really helps me make more videos like this, and you can do so by clicking just here so you don't miss any future videos. And if you've enjoyed this format of the classic coffee and contemporary version of kind of classic cocktails, you can click on the playlist with lots more, which I'll put just here. So there's one now, but there'll be lots more in the future. And if you want to learn more about the kind of clarified coffee sour, which I spoke about, which inspired this, you can click just here. And to go through our coffee SACCHARUM syrup, which is our leftover coffee syrup, which we used earlier in the black mojito, you can click just here. So hopefully one of these videos is going to be useful for you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon. I'm going to have a bit more of this. Cheers, everyone.